Welcome to Omni View, episode 111 for July 13th, 2026. Balanced news perspectives, starting the week with a clear-eyed look at the stories that matter. A British tourist's death on an Ibiza hotel waterslide and a Yellowstone bison attack on a visitor highlight everyday safety risks at popular leisure spots. A 64-year-old British man died at a hotel pool in Ibiza after sliding down the waterslide and failing to resurface. The incident happened in front of his wife and daughter. Emergency services responded but could not revive him. Local tourism operators stress that such facilities undergo regular safety checks and that rare accidents do not reflect broader standards. UK media outlets focus on the family's presence and the sudden nature of the loss. Spanish authorities treat the case as an isolated medical or mechanical event pending investigation. Both sides agree the death was accidental. They differ on whether individual responsibility or facility oversight deserves more emphasis in prevention. What safety features are standard on hotel waterslides? Shifting now to events in the United States. A grandfather from Washington State was tossed into the air by a bison at Yellowstone National Park. The encounter was captured on video and has circulated widely. The man sustained injuries that are still being assessed. Park officials remind visitors that bison are wild animals that can charge without much warning when approached too closely. Wildlife advocates argue stricter enforcement of distance rules would reduce such encounters. Tourism promoters note that most visitors have safe experiences and that the park's rules already aim to protect both people and animals. All agree the bison acted defensively. The debate centers on how clearly those rules are communicated to first-time visitors. What distance rules apply to wildlife in national parks? Meanwhile, in Germany, the ruling coalition announced that tobacco taxes will rise more steeply by 2030 than previously planned. Officials say the change addresses both budget needs and public health goals. A separate U.S. Ebola patient has also arrived in Germany for treatment. Health campaigners welcome the faster tax trajectory as a tool to reduce smoking rates over time. Industry representatives contend that sharper increases risk boosting cross-border purchases and illegal trade. Finance ministry statements tie the move to revenue stability while acknowledging health benefits. Both sides accept that higher taxes reduce consumption. They differ on the speed at which that reduction should be pursued without creating enforcement problems. How do sin taxes typically affect consumption versus smuggling? Next, a political controversy in Spain. Former Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy faced criticism after commenting that France's national football squad contained no French players. Current Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez and voices in France condemned the statement. The remarks have reignited debate over national identity in sport. Critics across Spain and France view the comment as echoing outdated ideas about belonging and citizenship. Supporters of Rajoy argue he was simply noting the diverse origins of many players as a factual observation about team composition. Sanchez's response frames the issue as one of respect for integration. Both sides agree the squad includes players with immigrant backgrounds. The disagreement lies in whether highlighting those backgrounds is neutral description or exclusionary rhetoric. How do national teams reflect changing demographics? Turning to health developments in the United Kingdom. Oxford University researchers plan to inject 50 adults with an experimental Ebola vaccine within weeks. The trial aims to build immunity data amid an ongoing outbreak that has killed roughly 100 people per week in affected regions. This marks an early step in a larger effort to test the shot. Public health researchers emphasize the value of rapid trial enrollment when outbreaks are active. Regulatory bodies stress the need for careful safety monitoring before wider use. Community groups in trial locations want clear information on risks and benefits. All accept that vaccines require phased testing. The discussion focuses on how quickly data can be gathered without compromising standards. What phases are required before a vaccine reaches the public? Now to international diplomacy. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer left for a 2-day visit to France to join allies discussing support for Ukraine. The trip occurs as discussions continue about his eventual handover to Andy Burnham. No major outcomes have been announced yet. Government statements present the visit as routine coordination among partners. Opposition voices question the timing given domestic political transitions. French officials have welcomed the continued engagement. Both sides agree the meeting addresses ongoing security assistance. They differ on whether the Prime Minister's schedule reflects stable or unsettled leadership. How do leadership transitions affect foreign policy continuity? President Emmanuel Macron spoke to the armed forces on the eve of Bastille Day. The speech traditionally covers defense priorities and international commitments. No specific new policy announcements were highlighted in advance coverage. Military analysts see the address as an opportunity to signal readiness amid European security concerns. Domestic commentators note its role in reinforcing national unity around the armed services. Opposition parties often use the occasion to critique spending levels. All recognize the speech as a set-piece event. The variation lies in how much weight is given to its content versus its ceremonial function. What topics typically feature in Bastille Day Eve addresses? In markets today, investors moved funds into Apple as concerns grew over heavy spending by chip and cloud companies on artificial intelligence. The shift produced a substantial rally in Apple's market value. Trading patterns suggest a rotation rather than broad market decline. Portfolio managers describe the move as a defensive reallocation when AI-related forecasts appear stretched. Technology analysts note Apple's steady hardware and services revenue provide a contrast to more speculative growth bets. Company statements have not altered guidance in response. Both sides accept that investor sentiment can shift quickly between sectors. The question is whether the rotation signals lasting caution or short-term positioning. What metrics drive rotations between tech subsectors? Several Chinese electric vehicle companies are increasing production and sales operations outside their saturated home market. The moves target regions with growing demand for affordable EVs. Industry reports link the strategy to domestic oversupply pressures. Trade analysts view the expansion as a logical response to market conditions at home. Local manufacturers in target countries raise concerns about competitive pressure on pricing and jobs. Chinese firms emphasize technology transfer and local partnerships as part of their approach. Both sides agree global EV markets are expanding. They differ on whether Chinese investment accelerates or disrupts that growth. How do domestic market conditions shape export strategies? Hours of video from SFPD drone operations were exposed online after a leak. The material shows the extent of aerial monitoring across the city. Officials have not yet detailed how the footage became public. Privacy advocates argue the leak demonstrates how easily broad surveillance can escape controlled channels. Police departments stress that drones support public safety operations such as crowd monitoring and search efforts. City officials note existing policies govern drone use but acknowledge the need for tighter data handling. All accept that the footage originated from official platforms. The discussion centers on balancing operational utility with data security. What oversight exists for police drone programs? Jennifer Lopez, Nicole Kidman, Anna Wintour, and Sienna Miller were among those seeded for the men's singles final at Wimbledon. The event drew standard media attention to attendee fashion and pairings. Temperatures reached 29 degrees Celsius during the match. Fashion coverage highlights the stylistic choices of high-profile guests as part of the tournament's social appeal. Sports outlets focus primarily on the on-court action while noting the visible audience. Organizers present the Royal Box as a long-standing tradition that adds to the event's prestige. Both sides agree the final attracts notable figures. They differ on whether that presence enhances or distracts from the sporting occasion. How are Royal Box invitations managed? The Duke of Sussex appeared on a podcast with rugby player and television personality Joe Marler. Meghan Markle and the children have rejoined King Charles and Queen Camilla during the trip. The interview included light remarks about names and co-hosts. Royal correspondents treat the appearance as part of ongoing efforts to maintain a public profile separate from official duties. Commentators note the choice of a non-political guest as a low-key format. Palace sources have not issued statements on the content. Both sides accept the visit combines family and media elements. The variation lies in how much weight is given to its potential long-term implications for family relations. What formats have members of the royal family used for public conversations? To really understand how challenges to executive decisions unfold in the United Kingdom, most coverage treats a senior civil servant suing over dismissal as a simple personnel dispute. Yet the mechanism at work is judicial review of executive action. Under UK constitutional practice, courts examine whether a decision was made within legal powers, followed fair procedures, and avoided irrationality, without substituting their own policy judgment. The permanent secretary role carries statutory protections and national security vetting requirements that limit unilateral removal by the Prime Minister. When a claim reaches court, judges assess evidence of process rather than political wisdom, which can result in quashing orders or declarations of unlawfulness. Knowing this distinction lets readers separate claims about political interference from narrower questions of whether proper steps were taken. Next time you see headlines about a high-profile sacking, ask what statutory authority was cited, what procedural steps were documented, and what remedy the court is actually being asked to grant. Before we go, tomorrow watch for further details on the UK Ebola vaccine trial and any updates from the Prime Minister's meetings in France. That wraps up today's Omni View. Remember, the best informed people read more than one perspective. If this show helps you do that, share it with someone who values fair coverage. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nara Network, links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the Nara Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets. Each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen: Modern Investing Techniques, Modern Strategies for Canadian and U.S. Investors. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. New to the network? naranetwork.com/start-here picks the right daily briefing for you in about 2 minutes. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.